Hello, everyone, and welcome to our introduction to accessible events checklist. I'm going to pass over to Angus to introduce himself.
Yes, I'll make morning everyone. Whenever you're watching this, I'm Angus Mackenzie Davey. I'm one of the resident co-chairs of New Co-Production Forum for Adults. I'm co-chair of the Greenhill Cumberland Group and the Living Enabled Living Disabled Ambassador.
Thanks, Angus. Hi,
Sophie,
everyone. My name's Sophie Ibbotson. I'm a co-production service officer at Newnham Council, and welcome to our session today. So we're going to be covering why you need an accessibility checklist. We'll be looking at what is in the checklist and how you might apply this to some of the work that you're doing, and then we'll briefly cover next steps.
so I want to talk briefly about the social model of disability as opposed to the medical model of disability, which puts your impairment at the center of the disability. It's like the solution within the medical model, which has really been followed for centuries almost. It's the solution to a, a problem with a disability is involved in trying to cure that disability. So the disability itself is really encompassed within you as a disabled person, whereas within the social model of disability, the disability is seen as being something that's owned by society. So I am not disabled. I have impairments, maybe. I'm in a wheelchair. I have speech problems, whatever. But I only become disabled when there are things like no access to buildings and I'm stuck outside because it's not an accessible building. So it's society that makes me disabled, not my impairment. Um, if we go to the next slide, we want to talk about the barriers that society creates around us and prevents us taking a full part in society because simply we can't access it because of what society has built around us. I mean, admittedly, lots of buildings, etc., were created before there was any talk of making the place accessible for impaired people or people in general sometimes. I mean, it ain't just the impaired who struggle, it's people like mothers with young children, postmen, deliverymen. Oh, really, everyone experiences some of these barriers at some point. Talking though, in relationship to impaired people a bit more, you can see the examples we put. Okay, this isn't exhaustive, and if you have anything you'd like to contribute, we are making this a living document. We, we want feedback from everyone who either runs an event and wants to give us some advice on how we could improve the checklist or how your experience is. We really value any feedback we get, and we're looking to review this document at regular intervals. So you, I won't read out all this because hopefully you can read it yourself, but take a moment on things like poverty are necessarily involved with impairment. So it's all about a social model generally. So I'll leave it there because I realize I'm getting away from the point a bit. So Sophie, come in and interrupt me, please.
Yeah, so I'm going to give a bit of an overview of the accessible events checklist, but it's worth saying that it's been co-produced with residents who have disabilities who have experienced events in Newham and London and further, who've kind of shared with us their experience, and we've pulled this together. And that you don't need to check everything off the list, but it's just important to read through it and bear in mind what is on there and how you can integrate that into your events to meet the needs of the community. And the number one thing to remember is flexibility. So everyone is different, have different needs. One person who's in a wheelchair has different needs to another person in a wheelchair. So just being really mindful of kind of putting forward a range of options for people. So just to give an overview of what it contains, we have 5 main sections. The first is physical space. So that's looking at the accessibility of venues, but also considering things like transport, how people get to the venues, parking, and the general comfort in that space. If people feel comfortable and the venue is accessible, then they're able to participate meaningfully in our events. The next section is other needs. So that's how we meet the emotional, spiritual, and psychological needs of residents. So that's things like having safe spaces, prayer rooms, things like food, really identifying the intersectionalities of people's personalities and their needs as well. The next section is digital events. Although digital events aren't accessible to everyone, they can be a useful way for residents to be involved. So they might have a busy schedule, have caring responsibilities. They may even be housebound, and that is the only way they're able to or wish to engage with us. But there are things you can do to ensure that your digital events are accessible. A lot of us are pros now when it comes to digital events, but there's a lot we can improve to kind of make those spaces better for everyone. The next section is communication needs. So that's things like translators, but also things like communication cards. So how people are able to participate in a meeting and kind of demonstrate their needs, whether that's putting their hand up or agreeing to a question or asking for clarification. There are also communication cards for those who maybe don't wish to be interacted with, or people who want some gentle encouragement to be interacted with. And also aids for people with visual impairments is included in that. So the next category is information accessibility. That's how we put across information to be in an accessible format. So that's considering things like the background colors for those with dyslexia, or providing acetates to go over paper, which color them and make that information easier to access. but it also includes things like Easy Read, which is a form of translation for those with learning disabilities, but can also just be really handy for a lot of people who English is their first language and maybe need information in a more plain English format. And we've just kind of provided some general pointers around information. And then our final section is useful resources. So this is just some general pointers toward other areas which you might want to do some further reading on. Things like Easy on the Eye, which is a toolkit for producing easy read documents, or there's some information on making things dementia friendly as well. So there's a whole wealth of knowledge out there. This is really just an opportunity to kind of start considering accessibility. So for next steps. Yes,
Yeah,
Angus?
so really, we realised because we tried to be really inclusive in what we've set out in the document, as Sophie's already said, it won't all be relevant to your event. It may be if you're very inclusive, but certain sections may be more relevant to the actual event you're planning. So we'd advise you to read through it just for your own knowledge, really, but you don't need to check off everything. It's just advice about trying to be having the information there available if you want or need it. So please don't be overawed by the size of it, because pick and choose the parts that are relevant to you. And as we say, and I've already said, your feedback is really valued because that's how we hope to develop the document to be inclusive of everyone. Sophie, do you want to talk about the introduction to co-production?
Yeah, thanks, Angus. I think, if you're interested in learning more about what we do at the co-production team, then we run a introduction to co-production training every month, and it's free to sign up. And we've recently done a review, and it's been revamped with residents, and they will be co-delivering the session. So it's a really fun opportunity to get involved and to find out more about what co-production is, and perhaps do something like this yourselves one day. But thank you all for listening. It's been a pleasure. Please do check out the checklist. Um, Angus, did you want to round off with anything?
Well, just to say thank you for listening, and we look forward to any comments you've got once you've been through the checklist. Thank you.